I never thought I would find myself here, sharing my story in such an open way. But life has a funny way of forcing your hand, doesn't it? My name is Mark, and I've been married to Jennifer for 6 years. I always thought we had a strong marriage, built on mutual respect and love. We even participated in a series of racial reconciliation dialogues together, believing that open communication could strengthen our bond. But apparently, we were just building bridges to nowhere. The first signs that something was off came gradually. Jennifer had always been a bit of a social butterfly, always busy with friends, late-night outings, and spontaneous plans. I admired her vivacity. It's part of what drew me to her in the first place. But recently, she had become distant. The late-night texts, the lingering phone calls that she'd abruptly end when I walked into the room, and the way she would suddenly start putting on makeup before heading out were small, nagging irritants that I brushed off as paranoia. I convinced myself that it was all in my head. One evening, I returned home early from work, excited to surprise her with dinner. As I walked in, I noticed her phone was buzzing incessantly on the kitchen counter. Without thinking much of it, I glanced at the screen. My heart sank. It was a message from a guy named Derek, a name I had never heard before. The message was flirty, something about how he missed her and couldn't wait to see her again. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, but I brushed it off, telling myself maybe it was friends joking around. But the nagging feeling wouldn't go away. The next few days were a blur of confusion and denial. I tried to act normal. After all, I didn't have concrete evidence, just a bad feeling in my gut. But each time I saw Jennifer, my mind raced with thoughts of betrayal. I started narrowing down my suspicions. I noticed her spending more time on her phone, her sudden need for me time, and the way she would get defensive whenever I asked about her friends. It all made sense when I caught her at a coffee shop one Saturday afternoon. I had gone to pick up some coffee when I saw her laughing and leaning in closer to Derek, who was sitting. With her, they looked too comfortable together, and it shattered any lingering doubts I had. It felt surreal watching them. I debated whether to confront her on the spot, but I chose to gather my thoughts first. I needed to be calm when I confronted her. I waited until we were home that night. The air was thick with tension as I asked her about her day. She was evasive. Eventually, I couldn't hold it back any longer. "Jennifer, are you cheating on me?" I blurted out, my voice shaking. The look on her face was a mix of shock and annoyance, but she quickly composed herself. "No, of course not," she snapped, rolling her eyes as if I were being ridiculous. "That's absurd, Mark. Why would you even think that? You're being paranoid." I pressed her, recounting what I had seen and the messages I had found. Her expressions danced between anger and feigned innocence. "You're just misunderstanding everything. Derek is just a friend." "We were talking about work stuff," she lied, but her voice lacked conviction. It was infuriating. I felt like I was arguing with a brick wall. Her excuses flowed with such ease that it scared me. But in her eyes I could see something shifting, a flicker of guilt, or maybe it was contempt. Either way, it didn't matter. I had caught her in a web of lies, and she wasn't going to spin her way out of it this time. The emotional impact of that confrontation was overwhelming. I went from disbelief to anger and then to a deep, bone-crushing sadness. It's a strange feeling when the person who you thought you knew inside and out suddenly becomes a stranger. I wanted to scream, cry, and throw things all at once. I felt betrayed, not just by her actions but also by the lies that had woven themselves into the fabric of our lives. I spent the next few days in a haze, replaying the confrontation in my mind, trying to understand how she could betray me like this. I felt like I was losing not just my wife but also my sense of self. What had I done wrong? Why wasn't I enough? I felt a wave of self-doubt wash over me. But amidst the pain, I couldn't ignore the flicker of resilience. I knew I had to make a decision. Would I fight for my marriage, or would I walk away from this betrayal? I needed to figure out what I wanted. I realized that if I was going to move forward, it would require complete honesty, both from her and myself. But could I trust her again? I was standing at a crossroads, and every direction seemed fraught with uncertainty. The days that followed my confrontation with Jennifer felt like a slow-motion nightmare. On one hand, I was determined to uncover the truth, but on the other, I was battling a whirlpool of emotions that threatened to drown me. I spent sleepless nights tossing and turning, replaying every moment we had shared, every laugh, every intimate moment, and questioning if they had ever been real. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how much I had overlooked. Jennifer had always been a master of deflection, a skill she honed to perfection. When I would ask about her late nights or the odd behavior, she'd expertly redirect the conversation back to me. "Why are you so insecure, Mark?" she would say, making me feel like the problem was my need for reassurance, not her questionable choices. As I delved deeper, I decided to gather more concrete evidence. I knew that confronting her again without proof would be like trying to argue against the wind. I installed an app on my phone that allowed me to track her texts and calls discreetly. I hated that I felt compelled to do this, but I needed to know the truth. On the second day of keeping tabs, I stumbled upon a series of messages that confirmed my worst fears. There were suggestive texts and plans for meetups. She was meeting Derek during those late nights she claimed were filled with work commitments. My heart sank. I felt sick to my stomach, knowing that what I had seen at the coffee shop was just the tip of the iceberg. One night, as I sat alone in our dimly lit living room, I decided that I couldn't let her drag me down any longer. I needed clarity. I called my best friend Tom, someone who had been through his fair share of relationship struggles. As I shared my situation, his voice was steady and calm, which helped ground me. He reminded me that I deserved better and that I needed to focus on my well-being. Equipped with the knowledge of her betrayal and Tom's support, I chose to confront Jennifer again. This time it would be different. I wanted her to see the evidence I had compiled, and I needed her to understand that her lies were no longer going to work on me. That evening I confronted her as she walked through the door. "We need to talk," I said, cutting straight to the point. The tension in the room was palpable. She eyed me warily, sensing the seriousness in my tone. "Is this about Derek again? You need to let it go, Mark. I told you he's just a friend," she replied, trying to deflect. "No, Jennifer, it's not just Derek anymore. It's about you and the choices you've made. I have proof," I said, pulling out my phone. I showed her the messages, her lies displayed in stark black and white. Her expression shifted from defiance to shock, then anger. "How could you invade my privacy like this? This is ridiculous," she shouted, her voice rising. "Ridiculous? What's ridiculous is your behavior. You're the one who's betrayed our marriage," I fired back, unable to contain my frustration any longer. She attempted to spin the narrative, claiming that I was overreacting and that I was misunderstanding the intentions behind her messages. "You're being controlling, Mark. It's all just harmless," she insisted, but her frantic demeanor gave her away. "Harmless? You call meeting up with someone else harmless? You're having sex with him while I'm here, waiting for you to come home," I shot back, my voice laced with raw emotion. She floundered for a moment, the facade cracking as tears welled in her eyes. "It's not like that. I was just trying to find myself," she stammered. "Find yourself?" I echoed incredulously. "By cheating on your husband, this isn't just about you anymore. You made a choice, Jennifer. You chose him over us." The argument escalated, and it became clear that no amount of reasoning would penetrate her wall of denial. She hurled accusations at me about being too demanding, too focused on my own insecurities to see her side. I felt the anger boiling inside me, but I also felt a sense of sadness creeping in. As the confrontation reached its peak, I realized how far we had drifted apart. The woman who once promised to be my partner had become someone I no longer recognized. She was so wrapped up in her excuses and lies that she couldn't even see the damage she was doing to our marriage. After what felt like hours of shouting and tears, I finally backed away, my heart heavy. "I need time to think, Jennifer. This isn't just about you anymore. I can't keep putting myself through this," I said, and walked out of the room. It was the first moment of clarity I had experienced since all of this began. I spent the night on the couch, feeling lost. I played out every scenario in my mind, whether to fight for my marriage or to cut my losses. Could I ever trust her again? Or was this the final nail in the coffin? The emotional impact of that evening settled heavily in my chest. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, unsure whether to jump or to turn back and face the reality of what had become of us. In the days that followed, I took stock of my feelings. I realized that confronting Jennifer had been necessary, but I also understood that I needed to focus on my own healing. I had to figure out what I wanted, not just what I'd lost. But the question remained, could I find it in myself to forgive and rebuild, or was I destined to walk away from a marriage that had become a shadow of its former self? After the confrontation with Jennifer, the days turned into an emotional whirlwind. I felt like I was stuck in a storm, with each passing moment swirling around me, filled with confusion, heartache, and anger. I had done what I needed to do, confront her with the truth, but I was still left with so many unanswered questions about our future and my own heart. I spent the first few days after the confrontation in a daze, barely eating and hardly sleeping. I absorbed the reality of the situation. My wife had betrayed me, and I had witnessed her lies firsthand. It was a painful realization that my trust in her had eroded. Friends and family noticed my absence and the change in my demeanor. Tom, bless him, kept checking in, urging me to take care of myself. With each passing moment, I realized that I needed to sort through the mess in my head. I decided to take a step back from everything and focus on self-reflection. I went for long runs, allowing my thoughts to roam freely. During these runs, I replayed the moments in our marriage that made me fall in love with Jennifer. I remembered the laughter we shared, the dreams we had built together, and the passion that once ignited our relationship. It felt bittersweet, knowing that those memories were now tainted by betrayal. One evening, I found myself sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the wall. Jennifer had retreated into her own world, often spending her evenings locked in our bedroom. I felt the distance growing between us, like a chasm that neither of us dared to cross. It became clear to me that we were living in a fragile state of coexistence, and I couldn't continue like this forever. That's when I made the decision to lay everything on the table. I wanted a serious discussion, one that would force us to confront our reality head-on. So I called Jennifer into the living room, hoping she would take this seriously. "Jennifer, we can't keep avoiding each other like this," I said, trying to steady my voice. "We need to talk about what happened about us." She looked at me with a mixture of frustration and reluctance. "Mark, I told you that we're fine, I just need some space to breathe," she replied defensively. "Space? You think that's going to fix this?" I shot back. "We're far from fine. I caught you cheating, Jennifer. You need to accept the reality of what you've done. You can't just brush it aside." Her expression shifted slightly, and I could see the reflection of guilt flicker in her eyes, but she quickly masked it with anger. "You're making it worse by treating me like this. I didn't mean for it to happen, I just felt lost." "Lost? Is that your excuse?" I said, my frustration boiling over. "If you felt lost, why didn't you come to me? Why didn't you talk to me instead of seeking comfort in someone else? It hurts to know that you thought so little of our relationship that you would risk everything for a fling." I saw her eyes narrow as her defenses rose. "Again, so now it's my fault that you're not getting what you want. I was there for you when you needed me, but you've been so focused on work and your friends that you neglected me. I was trying to find something that was missing. It felt like we were going in circles, and I was growing tired of the blame game. This isn't about pointing fingers, Jennifer. It's about acknowledging the reality of our marriage. I want to know if you even want to fix this. If you don't, then we need to talk about what comes next," I said, my heart racing as I realized how pivotal this moment was. She hesitated, crossing her arms defensively. "I don't know, Mark. I didn't mean for things to go this far. It was a mistake. Can't we just forget about it and move on?" "Forget about it," I echoed incredulously. "How is that even an option? You can't just sweep this under the rug and pretend it didn't happen. We need to face this head on." "I deserve to know where you stand." Jennifer fell silent, and I watched as the wheels turned in her mind. Part of me wanted to shake her out of her denial, but a deeper part knew that the truth was more complicated than I could understand. "I loved you, Mark," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I still do, but I didn't know how to handle the distance that crept between us. I thought I could find solace with someone else just for a moment." Her admission cut me deeply, and I felt the weight of each word settle in my chest. "So, what now?" I asked, my voice steady despite the turmoil within me. "Are you willing to fight for us, or do you think this was just a chapter we can close?" She looked up at me, her expression softening ever so slightly. I want to try, Mark, I really do, but it's going to take time. I need to work through my own issues first. Time? How much time? Because I can't keep living like this, I said, my voice firm. I want to believe you, but I need to see real change. If we're going to move forward, it has to be built on honesty. No more lies. Can you promise me that? I can promise you that, she said, and for the first time I felt a glimmer of hope. It was fragile and unsteady, but it was there. As we sat there, I began to understand that moving forward wouldn't be a linear path. We had a long road ahead of us, and I was terrified of what that might look like. But I also realized that I had a choice. I could either let this define me, or I could choose to forge something new out of the ashes of our betrayal. In that moment, I decided I would give her another chance. I would hold on to the hope that our love could be rekindled if we both committed to doing the work. But I also knew that it would require complete honesty from both of us, and I was prepared to hold her accountable, just as I needed to hold myself accountable moving forward. As difficult as it was, I was ready to embrace the uncertainty. I was ready to fight for us, but only if she was willing to meet me halfway. The path ahead was unclear, but it was a path I was willing to walk together or apart. The days turned into weeks, and what began as an agonizing journey soon transformed into a tentative path forward. Jennifer and I set a new routine for ourselves, one filled with conversations that were raw, uncomfortable, and often emotional. We talked about what led her to stray and the feelings of loneliness that had crept in. I learned more about her insecurities, the ones she had hidden beneath a facade of confidence. It wasn't easy. Each conversation peeled back layers of hurt, exposing wounds we had both inflicted on each other, sometimes unknowingly. I found myself walking a tightrope, balancing between anger and understanding, resolutions and regret. But we were both committed to rebuilding, and that was something I hadn't expected to feel. We began attending couples therapy, where we could speak openly about our feelings in a safe space. I remember one session vividly. Jennifer sat across from me, her eyes wet with tears as she recounted the night she met Derek. I felt like I was invisible, Mark. I thought you didn't see me anymore, she admitted, her voice trembling. I felt a pang of guilt at her words. I never intended for you to feel that way, I replied softly, my heart heavy. I was caught up in my own world and I didn't pay attention to the signs, but your choice to cheat hurt me deeply. I need you to know that. In that moment, the therapist helped us navigate the murky waters of our emotions. We learned to communicate our feelings without placing blame. It was a slow process, but I could see glimmers of hope in the way we both began to open up. As the weeks passed, I noticed subtle changes in Jennifer. She was trying to be more present, more engaged. She started leaving her phone face down on the table, a gesture that seemed small but meant the world to me. It was as if she was saying, "I'm here now. You're my priority." Despite these positive changes, I still struggled with trust. I found myself questioning everything, from her late nights at work to the sudden outbursts of emotion that seemed to come out of nowhere. I wanted to believe we could heal together, but there was a nagging fear that haunted me. What if she slipped again? What if I wasn't enough? One night while lying in bed, I turned to her. "Do you still think about Derek?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Her expression shifted from surprise to contemplation. "Sometimes, yes, but not in the way you think. I think about what I lost in us. I think about how I let myself be vulnerable to someone outside our marriage. I don't want to feel that way again. I want you to know I'm committed to making this work." I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. "I want that too, but I need you to understand that rebuilding trust takes time. I can't just forget what happened." "I know," she replied earnestly, her hand finding mine. "I'm willing to put in the work, Mark. I want to show you that I can be the wife you deserve." As the conversation continued, I realized that we were both learning how to communicate our needs again. It was raw and real, and for the first time in a long while, we were on the same page. Our journey took a different turn when I proposed we take a weekend trip together. I thought a change of scenery might help heal some of the tension between us. Jennifer seemed excited, and we planned a getaway to a cabin in the woods, somewhere we could disconnect from the chaos of our lives and reconnect with each other. The weekend arrived, and as we drove toward the cabin, I felt a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. Would this trip be a turning point for us, or would it expose the wounds still festering beneath the surface? Upon arrival, the tranquility of the woods enveloped us. The air was crisp, and the silence was a welcome change. We settled into the cozy cabin, lit a fire, and spent the first evening talking and reminiscing about our early days together. I felt warmth seep back into my heart as we shared laughter and stories. However, as the night wore on, the weight of our unresolved issues hung in the air. I could sense Jennifer's unease, and I didn't want to ruin the moment by bringing up the past. But as she laughed, I couldn't help but think about the darkness that had clouded our relationship. "Do you think we'll ever truly get over this?" I asked, my voice betraying the worry swirling inside me. She sighed, looking into the fire. "I hope so. I want to believe that we can, but it's going to take time and effort from both of us. It's not going to be easy, Mark." I nodded, appreciating her honesty. "I know, but I'm willing to fight for us. I want to make this work." That night we shared a passionate moment, rekindling a spark that had dimmed. It was intense and cathartic, both of us pouring out our fears, our hopes, and our love into that one moment. As we lay in bed afterward, I felt the weight of the world slowly lifting off my shoulders. But as the weekend drew to a close, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were still on shaky ground. Trust was a fragile thing, and while I felt hopeful, I knew that one misstep could send us spiraling back into that dark place. When we returned home, the reality of our lives settled back in the work, the routines, and the lingering questions about our future. Jennifer had made strides toward being more transparent, but I still felt the need to tread carefully. It was a constant balancing act, one that required vigilance on both our parts. As we navigated this newfound dynamic, I began to understand that rebuilding a relationship after betrayal was less about erasing the past and more about creating a new foundation. It was about accepting our flaws and learning to grow from them. In the following weeks, we continued therapy and engaged in open conversations about our feelings. I found myself learning not just about Jennifer, but also about myself. I discovered the depths of my own insecurities and the ways I had contributed to the rift between us. It was a journey of self-discovery, and I realized that healing wasn't a destination but an ongoing process. I began to take steps toward enhancing my own sense of self-worth. I started pursuing hobbies I had neglected and rekindled friendships that had faded over time. It felt liberating, and I could sense that Jennifer noticed the change in me. It was as if we were both evolving and starting to shape a new version of ourselves, one that involved mutual respect and understanding. But in the back of my mind lingered the question, would we be able to navigate this path together, or would the shadows of betrayal eventually eclipse the light we were trying to rebuild? I knew it was a risk we had to take, but the journey ahead was still uncertain. As weeks turned into months, I held on to the hope that together we could forge a new path. But deep down, I also understood that love alone wouldn't heal us. It would require unwavering honesty and commitment from both of us. I was ready to fight for that, even if the road was long and fraught with challenges. As the months passed, the journey to rebuild my marriage with Jennifer transformed from a turbulent struggle to a cautious yet hopeful path. Our commitment to therapy and open communication allowed us to peel back layers of hurt, but I didn't want to ignore the reality that lingering fears still hovered over us like dark clouds threatening to rain. One evening, we were sitting on the couch, both of us engrossed in our own thoughts. I could sense the tension creeping back in, a reminder of how fragile our newfound progress was. It was during these quiet moments that I often felt the most vulnerable when the silence became a breeding ground for doubt. "Hey, can we talk?" I finally said, breaking the stillness. I needed to address the elephant in the room. Jennifer looked up, her brow furrowing slightly. "Sure, what's on your mind?" I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts. "I feel like we've made a lot of progress, but I still worry about the trust factor. Some days I find myself doubting if we're truly past what happened. I don't want to keep bringing it up, but I need to know where we stand." She nodded, her expression softening. I understand. Trust is a delicate thing, isn't it? I've been thinking about it too. Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever fully earn your trust back. Her honesty struck a chord. It's not just about you earning it back, Jennifer. It's about us creating a new foundation. I want to believe in us again, but I need to see changes from both of us. I want to feel secure knowing we're both committed to this. I want that too, she said, her voice steady. I've been working on being more honest and open with you. It's not easy for me, especially after everything that happened, but I want to show you that I'm serious about making this work. We talked late into the night, exploring the nuances of our feelings. It was refreshing to see how far we had come from the raw pain of our betrayal. But in the back of my mind, I couldn't shake the fear that something might trigger a relapse, sending us spiraling back into chaos. As we settled into our new routine, I found that I was slowly starting to let go of some of that fear. I had to trust that our commitment to open dialogue would be our safety net. We began to establish rituals that strengthened our bond, a regular date night and weekend activities that reminded us of the things we loved about each other. One weekend, I suggested we go on a hiking trip to a nearby national park. Nature had always been a source of solace for both of us, and I thought it would be a great way to reconnect. Jennifer was excited, and we packed our bags with enthusiasm. The hike was refreshing. We talked, laughed, and enjoyed the beauty of the great outdoors. It felt like a return to the early days of our relationship when everything was new and exciting. As we reached the summit and looked out over the breathtaking view, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. This is amazing, Jennifer said, her eyes sparkling as she took in the scenery. I'm so glad we did this. Me too, I replied, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. I think being outside helps clear my mind. I've missed this. Me too. It's nice to reconnect, she said, leaning into me. As we stood there, I wrapped my arm around her and pulled her close. In that moment, I felt a flicker of hope that we were heading in the right direction. Perhaps our journey toward healing was yielding fruit after all. The following week, however, things took an unexpected turn. While I was at work, I received a text from an unknown number. I hesitated before opening it, but my heart sank when I read the message. You might want to check on Jennifer. I saw her with Derek last night. My blood ran cold. I felt the air leave my lungs. I couldn't believe what I was reading. All the progress we had made, all the trust we had begun to rebuild, felt like it was hanging by a thread. My heart raced as I contemplated the implications of the text. Had she betrayed me again? I contemplated what to do next. Should I confront her without evidence? Would that create unnecessary drama? Or should I wait, gather more information, and approach her calmly? The idea of confronting her again filled me with dread. Ultimately, I decided that I needed to be sure before acting. I called Tom, who listened patiently as I recounted the text and my growing anxiety. Mark, I know it's hard, but gather your thoughts before you say anything. You don't want to jump to conclusions, he advised. His words resonated with me. I needed to remain calm and composed no matter how furious I felt. I couldn't let my emotions dictate my actions. That evening, I returned home, my heart pounding in my chest. Jennifer greeted me with a smile, and for a moment I felt a flicker of relief. But the weight of the text loomed over me, and I knew I had to confront her. Jennifer, can we talk? I said, my voice steady but laced with tension. Of course, what's wrong? She asked, her brows furrowing as she sensed my seriousness. I took a deep breath, trying to control my emotions. I received a text today from an anonymous number that said you were seen with Derek last night. Is it true? Her expression shifted dramatically. What? Who told you that? I felt a rush of anger at her defensiveness. It doesn't matter who told me. I need to know if it's true. Have you been seeing him again? Jennifer's face paled, and for a moment she didn't speak. Mark, I wasn't with him. That's not true. You have to believe me. I could see the panic rising in her eyes, and my heart ached at her fear. But why would someone say that? Why does it feel like you're hiding something? I'm not hiding anything, she replied, desperation seeping into her voice. I swear to you, I've been working on myself. I wouldn't do that again. I can't believe you'd even think that. I could sense the sincerity in her words, but the seed of doubt had been planted. Then who was it? Why would someone lie about this? I need you to be honest with me. I don't know, Mark. I don't know who would say that. I'm not seeing Derek, I promise. Her tears were real and I felt my heart waver. I didn't want to believe that she could betray me again, but I was terrified of being lied to. We stood in silence for a moment, the weight of uncertainty hanging heavy between us. I need time to process this, I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. Please just give me one chance to prove I'm committed to us, she pleaded, her eyes searching mine. I nodded, feeling the turmoil within me rage on. I didn't know how to proceed, but I knew I had to tread carefully. The fear of losing her again was overwhelming, yet the doubt was suffocating. That night I lay awake, wrestling with the swirling emotions within me. I had fought so hard to rebuild our relationship, only to now feel the ground beneath me shake once more. Would this be the moment that shattered everything we had built? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain. The path to trust was fraught with challenges, and I had to navigate it with caution. The next few days felt like an eternity. I was caught in a limbo of uncertainty, torn between my desire to give Jennifer the benefit of the doubt and the nagging fear that her infidelity was a recurring theme. I couldn't shake the feeling that the other shoe was about to drop, and I watched her every move like a hawk. Despite my turmoil, I knew I needed to confront the situation head-on. The last thing I wanted was to let this consume my thoughts and poison the healing we had begun to cultivate. So I reached out to Tom again. I just don't know what to believe anymore, I confessed during our phone call. The trust we've been building feels so fragile now. I'm scared to fall back into that darkness. Mark, you have to decide what you want, Tom said. Is this relationship worth fighting for? If it is, then you need to have a serious conversation with her. Ask her for the truth. You deserve honesty, even if it's hard to hear. His words resonated with me, and I realized he was right. I needed to face Jennifer again, but this time I would approach her with the intention of digging deeper. I was prepared to ask the hard questions and to demand clarity. That evening, I sat her down and looked deep into her eyes. Jennifer, I can't keep living in this limbo. I need you to be completely honest with me. I want to know if you've been in contact with Derek again. If so, now's the time to tell me. Her expression remained serious as she met my gaze. Mark, I swear to you I haven't seen him. I don't want to go back to that place. I want to be here with you. Then explain why someone would send me that message. I need to understand, I pressed, my voice steady but filled with concern. I don't know, she replied, frustration creeping into her tone. Maybe it's someone who wants to see us fail. I don't know why people spread rumors. I'm fighting for us, and I wish you would trust me. The tension in the room thickened, and I felt the familiar pang of doubt rise within me. Trust isn't given freely, Jennifer. It's earned, and right now I need reassurance that you're committed to this. Can you do that? She paused, taking a deep breath. What can I do to prove it? I'll do anything, she said earnestly. I want to show you that I'm serious about making this work. I'll cut ties with anyone who threatens our relationship. I can block Derek's number if that will help. Her willingness to take steps to rebuild my trust struck a chord within me, but at the same time the fear of the unknown loomed large. I just need to see it over time, Jennifer, not just words. I want actions that show me you're committed to moving forward. I understand, she replied, her eyes softening. I'm willing to put in the work. Let's make a plan together. I don't want to go through this again. I want you to feel secure. In that moment, I could see the resolve in her eyes. Perhaps this was the turning point we both needed. As we continued to talk, we established new boundaries, clear and honest communication between us. I began to see glimpses of the woman I fell in love with, the woman who was willing to fight for our marriage. Over the following weeks, I watched her take action. She was proactive about blocking Derek, and she began sharing her calendar with me, giving me visibility into her life. It felt like we were forging a stronger bond built on mutual respect and understanding. However, I still felt the need to be cautious. Trust takes time to rebuild, and I knew that I needed to remain vigilant. I began attending support groups where I could talk about my feelings with others who had faced similar issues. Connecting with them helped me process my emotions and set a better foundation for my own healing. One evening, we were watching a movie together, and I turned to her, my heart racing as I spoke. I'm proud of the progress we're making. I know we're not out of the woods yet, but I appreciate everything you've done so far." Jennifer smiled, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you, Mark. I'm trying my best. I want us to succeed." As the weeks turned into months, I started to notice a shift. The walls that once stood between us began to crumble. We were learning to communicate better, and I began to trust her again, albeit cautiously. One day, while we were out for a walk, I took her hand and paused. "I've been thinking a lot about what we've been through. It's been painful, but I also feel like we're on a path to something better. I want to commit to us, Jennifer, but I also want you to know that I won't tolerate betrayal again." "I understand," she replied earnestly, squeezing my hand. "I've learned from this. I want to build a future with you, one that's built on honesty and respect." In that moment, I felt as if we had crossed a significant threshold. The weight of our past wasn't gone, but it was transforming into a source of strength rather than a crippling burden. Life went on, and while there were still moments of doubt, they were becoming less frequent. We learned to celebrate the small victories, laughing together, sharing our dreams, and rediscovering the love that had been overshadowed by betrayal. Reflecting on our journey, I realized that while infidelity had shattered our previous version of love, it had also forced us to confront our flaws and grow. We were both becoming better partners, learning the importance of vulnerability, transparency, and honesty. In the end, I understood that love is not about perfection. It's about navigating the rough waters together. We had the power to rebuild and redefine our future, and I was ready to embrace that. As I turned to Jennifer one evening, watching her smile as she laughed at a joke, I knew we were on the right path. Our love story was still being written, and for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful about what the next chapter might bring.